Welcome to the Health Fix podcast, where health junkies get their weekly fix of tips, tools, and techniques to have limitless energy, sharp minds, and fit physiques for life. One of the best things you can do to improve your health is get at least 7 hours of quality sleep every single night. I know, it's hard to get that much sleep. Your mind keeps you awake, you're thinking about things, you get uncomfortable, you wake up early, and you just can't fall asleep again. There are hundreds of reasons why you can't get 7 hours of quality sleep every single night, and I've probably at least told you 100. But hey, listen, it's super important because your body heals itself when you sleep. And if you're not getting enough quality sleep, you're increasing your risk of disease and making it harder to lose weight. Yes. Wait, would you like to know an easy way to get more quality sleep every night? Make sure you're getting enough magnesium. Believe it or not, around 75% of people don't have enough of it, which helps explain why so many people have sleep problems. Unfortunately, most magnesium supplements are not full spectrum, so they won't fix your magnesium deficiency or help you sleep better. There are actually 7 unique forms of magnesium, and you must get all of them if you want to experience its calming, sleep-enhancing effects. That's why I recommend Magnesium Breakthrough by Optimizers. Simply take 2 capsules before you go to bed, and you will be amazed by how much better you sleep and how much more rested you feel when you wake up. For an exclusive offer for my listeners of the Health Fix podcast, you guys want to go over to www.magbreakthrough.com/healthfix. And you can save up to 42%. Yes, that's right. 42% savings on Magnesium Breakthrough when you go to www.magbreakthrough.com/healthfix. Hey, health junkies. On this episode of the Health Fix podcast, I'm interviewing Hope Pedraza. She is a certified holistic nutritionist and she's a functional diagnostic nutrition practitioner. She's also a Pilates instructor and the founder of In Balance, a Pilates-based fitness franchise and host. She's also a host of a podcast known as the Hopeful and Wholesome Podcast, and I get to be on her podcast in a little bit, so stay tuned for that. But the cool thing about Hope is that she and I are very into helping ladies use their intuition to figure out kind of what's going on with their health. Now, there's this whole concept going around these days about, is there something really wrong with me, or is there just an imbalance? Is there something where I need to take care of myself more? Well, you're in luck if you're wondering about that, because Hope and I are going to talk all about making space to take care of yourself, what that means. We're also going to dive into breath work. We're going to dive into the core and breathing deeply through the core, which is something that I've struggled with my entire life. And that's where I did find Pilates to be extremely helpful. So we're going to dive into all those things. This is part 1 of a 2-part series with Hope, where we're going to be going into next the concept of human design. And we're going to talk about my human design, Hope's human design, and how that relates to why we do the things we do and why we have the habits we do, and why it's important to use and know really your human design so that you can use it to be able to find the right program for you, your right health program, your right fitness program, all of it. So, all right, I've been talking way too much. Let's get on with the podcast. Hello there, health junkies. Welcome to another episode of The Health Fix. I'm your host, Dr. Janine Krause. And on today's episode, I have Hope Pedraza on, and we're going to be talking about all things ladies in terms of using our intuition, but also looking at the overall spectrum of health and what good gut health looks like, things of that nature. So I'm excited to talk to Hope because she's got a whole background with Pilates and fun stuff that I think that all of us folks can use at this day and age. All right. So Hope, welcome to the Health Fix podcast.
Thanks so much for having me.
So you have quite the history here. I was looking at your website and seeing that you've got a franchise where you are a studio, inbalancestudios.com, guys, by the way. And it's a fascinating concept because you've kind of got a mission behind things thanks to Dad's story. Will you tell us a little bit about how you got into all of this and more?
Yeah. So my background was dance. I danced for first 20, however many years of my life. I started at like 3 and just kind of made my way through high school, college, the whole thing. And that's really what got me into this love of movement just from, a super early age. As I kind of grew into this love of movement, it turned into this love and this fascination with the human body and just me always wanting to know more. And so my dance background is what let me into the world of Pilates. And for those who don't know what Pilates is, it is all about using the core for stability and using your own body weight as resistance. And it's all about controlled, precise movements. And that's what drew me in. I loved the precision and the flow and the mind body connection. I just loved all of it. So I started teaching when I was in college. And then sometime after college, I was just presented with the opportunity to open a studio. I actually bought a failing yoga studio and decided I wanted to rebrand and make it my own and turn it into my own Pilates and fitness studio. And so that's what I did. And from there, it kind of just, as my studio grew and evolved, and as I grew and evolved, it turned into this, like, I wanted to create this like one-stop shop wellness space. And so I wanted to not only provide like these mind body exercises for people where they could get everything they wanted in one spot. Because we have Pilates, we have yoga, we have bar, we have dance, cardio, HIIT, trampoline cardio, like you name it, we got all of it. But I also wanted to provide this wellness space where people could get the, nutritional guidance and nutritional support that they were looking for, and this kind of guidance on a functional level. And so I've kind of grown and evolved it that way, and with, my own training and certifications and stuff in nutrition, and to be able to offer that for everybody who comes in through the doors of our studios.
It's quite an offering. I mean, I was looking at your online, classes and things of that nature. She's got quite a few videos, folks. So if you do go over to inbalancestudios.com, you'll see all of the different things that one could find there. I mean, some of the Latin, I saw Latin something
with sculpt. Yes,
that was fun too. So I was like,
yep.
Wow, what a fun thing. And obviously with COVID, it kind of helped us to like jump into being able to work out at home a little more comfortably and in that nature. Now you're in the San Antonio area, correct? Is that what I saw?
Correct. That's right.
And what neighborhoods, for folks that might be listening and going, hey, I'm in Texas, I'm in San Antonio, maybe I want to stop by in person.
Yeah. So we have one right now in the northwest part of town, near the I-10 and 1604 exchange. And then we have one in the Alamo Ranch area. So they're kind of on opposite ends right now. So our franchise not long before COVID, and of course, COVID kind of put a dent in things. So our plans now are to kind of get back on track with that and slowly start to expand from where we have our studios right now.
Awesome. So yeah, folks, if you are in the San Antonio area, you've got to check out Inbound Studios. Now, of course, we were wanting to talk a little bit about women and intuition, since, your studios are definitely focused, it looks from the pictures, mostly on women, and kind of this concept of how we can tell when something's off and what to do about it. So tell me a little bit more about how you got a lot of your clients with dialing in their own intuition and really beginning to start to pay attention to what's going on in their bodies.
Yeah. I mean, I really think that intuitive piece is the piece that we're missing a lot of times. I think that, it really goes back to just awareness. And that's one of the first things that I work with my clients. So when I first start working with my clients, I have them fill out just a little food journal from, 3 or 4 days. And it's not just about, what did you eat today? What did you eat for breakfast and lunch? It's deeper than that. It's asking about, their feelings and their emotions before they ate and during, while they were eating and after they were eating. And I had one client one time tell me, like, I feel like this is a therapy session because I'm asking all these questions about their feelings and all that kind of thing. But the point is that what we eat is not just what we eat. Like, what we eat is how we're eating and what we're feeling while we're eating and what we feel after we eat. And that's all of that affects our digestion and everything about our day and about our body and about our health. And so I think that's always the first piece I want to hone in on, because a lot of times we don't have the awareness. And I find many times when they're doing this, my clients are doing this food journal, like the first day is very like short. And it's like, I felt fine. I felt hungry. I felt full. And then by the last day, they're like, drawing out these long paragraphs, and they're like realizing like, okay, I did feel this way and this way and this way before I ate. And then I noticed that after I ate, I felt that, so they're able to kind of bring in that sense of awareness. And it really is the first piece, because we can't change what we're not aware of. And that's really all it comes down to. It comes down to just bringing in that sense of awareness, that body awareness, being in tune with your body and listening to your body, because it's not just about like hearing it. You have to listen to it too and do something about it. And so that piece of awareness really is what brings in that intuitive piece, and in understanding, how we're feeling, tracing things back to like triggers. That's the other thing too, as I work with my clients throughout their time with me, where they'll send me a message, well, I felt this way and this way and this thing flared up, and so then let's go back, let's talk about what we ate, let's talk about what your stress levels were like, let's talk about, have you been doing like your mindfulness practices, let's talk about what your nervous system has been like. So let's kind of piece things together, and so that also helps them build that sense of body awareness too, where they can kind of put the pieces together and really draw connections to why they're feeling the way they're feeling, and kind of figure out where their triggers are, what their triggers are. So it's kind of what we were saying before we started recording. It's, everybody has that intuition. It's just whether or not we take the time to tune into it or know how to tune into it. And I think a lot of times we do know how, we just don't take the time to do it. We're just go, 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 million miles an hour. And it's really, you have to create the space to listen to your body, because it's going to tell you what it needs. It's going to tell you what's going wrong if we just take the time to listen to it.
That's huge, saying take this time and the space to do it and create the space for it, because I think a lot of us are like, oh, it's another thing we have to do.
Yep,
in our day. Now I have to pay attention to this. And unfortunately, when it comes down to it, there's really no other way but to look in. I mean, yes, there's testing, but as I explained to folks, yes, I'm a huge tester, but I'm also at the same time, there's a lot of things that your body's going to tell you even better or more accurately than a test would.
Right. And I'm the same way. I do lots of functional labs and stuff too, but it's not going to mean anything if I don't know like all the answers to this really in-depth intake process to be able to understand how you're feeling and all the things going on that you can explain, because you have to put all the pieces together. But again, like you said, because it's like, and I'm sure it's the same for you. You have a lot of women who have been to a lot of doctors who told them everything was quote normal, but they don't feel normal. Like obviously, something is going wrong. So the tests and the labs aren't going to tell everything.
It's true. And who's looking at the lab parameters as well? Because of course I know that you are a functional diagnostic nutritionist too. And so, nutrition practitioner, but nevertheless, it's still the same. We're looking at things at a little tighter parameters, a little different way than the conventional doc.
Right.
Yeah. When it's all said and done, I am often like, I need your partnership. And we need to work together to you to do the awareness piece, me to kind of help you, to guide you along the way. Now, how with your clients, do you do certain programs, or is it part of the fitness? And how do you work with folks, just so folks can get a sense of how your programs play out?
Yeah. So I really essentially have two separate businesses. So I have my online nutrition business, and then I have my brick and mortar Pilates studio. And of course there are ways that, I integrate those with the ladies who come in through my doors. But for the most part, my nutrition practice is virtual. I've got clients in Europe and Alaska and, all over the place. So, once COVID hit, that was kind of like the catalyst for like, okay, let's kind of, let's make this into a more easily scalable business. And so we can doing that online was really the answer. And so I work with clients in whatever capacity they need me to. So whether it's the ladies who come into the doors of my studio, or it's people who find me online, it's, I can meet them wherever they are.
That's awesome. I like the blend of fitness. It's kind of what I like to do in my programs and with my folks. And I'm definitely balancing brick and mortar, in and out of my office in Tacoma once every few months now. And so it's definitely an interesting kind of balance, but I do like having the fitness involved, because I do think that it can really give us like you said, when we started out the podcast, the movement aspect of things, that circulation that we need. And also with Pilates, I have found the first time I did Pilates, I thought, oh, I got core. I can do planks all day long. I got this. And for those of you who haven't tried Pilates, I definitely do want to talk to Hope a little bit about it, because it ties in well to awareness. Yeah. Because I had no idea that I wasn't engaging certain muscles. So let's talk about that for a minute in terms of how, you integrate the awareness of the body within Pilates and transfer it over to the nutrition side of things.
Yeah, it really is such a good connection. And I had an interview the other day and we were talking about this, because I feel like there's so many layers to Pilates. And yeah, of course you can use it for just exercise. It's a great form of exercise. It's a great form of just movement and working your muscles and getting stronger and all that. But there's so many more layers to it than that, because at its core, it really is, it's precision and awareness. That's what it is. It is such precise movements, and there's such a focus on form, moving your body in a certain way, keeping one thing still while this other thing is moving. It just works those little tiny stabilizer muscles in a way that other forms of exercise just don't work. And it requires this mind body connection, really, that no other exercise involves. Of course, there's other mind body, forms of exercise, like yoga is another mind body exercise, but it's just such a different workout in Pilates because it is so precise, and it is so, there's such an emphasis on the control, right? Initially, that's what it's called. Joe Pilates called it contrology. That was what it was called. And so it is this mind body piece, but then the other piece, like the other layer to that, what I was talking about the other day, is the breath work. And in Pilates, and for those of you listening who have done Pilates, you know that, and depending on, what school of teaching you're taking your class in, there's more emphasis on breath than the other, but it all goes back to the breath. That was Joe Pilates' whole thing, was the breath. Like that's what everything starts from. And it's knowing how to breathe correctly. It's knowing how to breathe while you're engaging your abs, which, strangely enough, a lot of people don't know how to do. They don't know how to engage their abs and breathe at the same time.
I actually had a horrible time trying to figure it out. It's one of those things I've lifted weights for years, but I would not be that person that could like inhale, exhale with the weights. Yes. I could not figure that out for years. I mean, I think I only have it slightly mastered now. And then when one of my really good friends introduced me to Pilates, I was like, oh my God, this whole breathing thing. I mean, then. So let's talk about that a little bit more in terms of breathing, while engaging the core, because I think most people, we hold our breath. That's what we do.
It's exactly right. And that's like, we do teacher trainings in my studio. And that's the first thing I always tell them when I'm teaching my teacher trainees. It's like, there is a certain point where you're talking about which part of the exercise you're doing, the inhale and the exhale, but really and truly the most important thing is just to freaking breathe. Like, just breathe. If first of all, obviously, if you're not breathing, you're not getting oxygen to your brain and all the other parts of your body. But at the same time too, you're not able to use your muscles as efficiently. And that's the whole thing is in Pilates. And that's why I feel like there's so many layers to this, because, when you really look at like the science behind like breathing correctly and just the breath in general, I mean, it's all about oxygenating the blood and the muscles and breathing, new fresh oxygen into your cells and everything while you're using your body. I mean, there's a whole science behind the breath, but really it's all about using the breath and using the core as efficiently and effectively as possible. So for example, when you're taking and this is the other thing too, people get like yoga and Pilates confused with each other, and they're both great. They're both there's benefits to both of them. So not to say one's better than the other by any means, but they're different. Mm-hmm. And so in Pilates, we're about diaphragmatic breathing. We're about the rib breathing, like using the intercostal muscles, the muscles in between your ribs, all of those like deep ab muscles. Where in yoga, they're more about the belly breath. So it's a little bit different. And so it's, especially when I have people who are coming from yoga to Pilates, you almost have to like retrain your body to like, okay, wait, because I want to engage my abs, but then I want to breathe at the same time. But if I engage my abs, I feel like I have to hold my breath. So you really do have to train your body. But that's how we use the body more efficiently, when we can use the breath and the core all at the same time.
Oh, yeah. No, I absolutely agree. I think for a lot of people, that's where injuries happen too.
Totally.
When we're not using the breath and the core at the same time.
Right. And I like that you were talking about weightlifting, because that's the other thing I love about Pilates is that it lends so well to every fitness genre. Because that's the thing with us, we have some people who are like, diehard imbalanced people. Then we have other people who they want to come just a couple times a week because they're runners or they're weightlifters or they do CrossFit or they do Orange Theory or they do, they do these other things. But it's like, well, but I also want the flexibility and the balance work and the stability work and the core work. Like I want to supplement that with all these other things. It just lends itself, a transfer so well to other, types of movement and fitness.
I like it. I think it's a great mix. Like you said, I am a weightlifter. I love lifting, but I also love to run. I love to bike. I mean, you name it. So it's fun to have a mix. And I think, for a lot of people, sometimes the concept is I am this, and there's a huge identity around that. And sometimes it's hard to kind of think, oh, maybe I could make my running, my running could be so much better if I use my core more, which is a huge one that I forget to tell patients a lot. And I'm like, we just found out with one of my guys who has chronic low back pain. I'm like, we didn't talk about that. And finally his PT was like, are you like engaging your core at all when you run? And he's like,
What is that? Yeah.
what do you mean? And so, it's these kind of things where you're like, right, that core and
Yep.
breath and all of it, so really cross training in a sense of different types of training.
Definitely.
Now you had mentioned, and I saw it on your website, the trampoline training. So like it looks like
Yeah.
rebounders. Is
Mhm.
that what it is?
We do. Yep. We have little mini trampolines that we have a trampoline cardio class. It's one of our signature classes. We brought that in, I don't know, maybe 4 or 5 years ago. And it's such a, because I started off like my main classes I started off with was like yoga, Pilates. I had dance cardio because my dance background. I wanted to offer something
Yep.
dancy, and then and bar. So, but then I wanted to bring something in that was a little nicer on the joints because not everybody can do dance cardio. It is a high impact class and it's not for everybody. And so I brought in the trampoline cardio, like, okay, this is a way where you can still get a really good, like high intensity class, like sweat your butt off, but then it's so much nicer in your joints and it has so many other benefits. Like the rebounder, as you know, and some of your listeners might know, is really great for your lymphatic system. And so there's so many other benefits to, besides just getting a fun, good fun workout of the rebounder, that I just wanted to bring, something, that aspect to the members as well.
That's fun. It's fun. I mean, I'm always in favor of anything that's creative and fun and
Yes.
having folks try and try multiple different things. That's kind of my MO, because I don't think that we have to necessarily, even be in a gym as you guys have it for, the online as well. So I think I just think that's a great way to be thinking about, but also for folks who are listening, it's just, if you don't like one thing, keep trying different things, see what works, try multiple things. Sometimes a mix of things will work better. Because I think a lot of ladies will come into my practice and be like, doc, I've been lifting weights and I've been running or on the treadmill or whatever, and I'm not getting the body that I want. And sometimes I'll be like, it might be that we need to mix and match some of the fitness. Have you seen that too?
Oh yeah, for sure, for sure. Well, and I think the other part, you kind of pointed to this too. I think the other thing is finding something you enjoy, because I think sometimes like women come in and they've been doing something like because they think they should be doing it. Like they think running is the best exercise, and nothing gets running. I was a runner for years and I love running, but they think, well, I should be running because that's going to burn the most calories. Well, it's now your knees are hurting and you're coming in telling me that your knees and your hips are hurting. And two, you're still not happy with, what's going on here. So clearly something else needs to happen. Like maybe you do running, but add something else. So I think it's, like you're saying, trying different things, because maybe the thing you think you should be doing is not really necessarily a thing that's going to transform your body the way you want or transform your health the way you want. And it's just not enjoyable. Like, why do it if you don't like it,
Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, it goes back to awareness, right? Looking
Yep.
at how an aspect of fitness feels for you and seeing how your body recovers. But also, if you're not getting, the change that you're looking for, sometimes it's like, okay, a couple of different things are missing.
Yep, for sure.
It's one of those things that I love to talk about. Now, one of the things that you had highlighted that you like to talk about is nervous system regulation and mindfulness. Now, I geek out on anything vagus nerve, anything
Yes.
parasympathetic, chill mode kind of stuff. Tell us how you integrate that into either the studios or into your functional nutrition.
Yeah. Yeah. So a huge piece of what I do with my clients in my nutrition practice is, there's a lot of pieces that we're covering in terms of like their healing protocol, right? And of course, we look at diet and we look at exercise, but a big piece is your sleep and your stress. And we're looking at both of those. There's different components within each of those, but a lot of it goes down to your nervous system. And I feel like, and I do feel like it's getting a little bit more, time in the spotlight in the past. And maybe it might just be in my world that I see, but I feel like it's getting a little bit more recognition now. But I feel like it still is a huge underestimated part of the wellness equation is your nervous system. Because like you're talking about the vagus nerve, like people don't really understand the power of what that vagus nerve really is, like that gut brain connection and what's going on along the vagus nerve. And really, your nervous system is literally connecting every part of your body together. So when your nervous system is going haywire and going crazy and dysregulated, your whole body is going to be dysregulated. And so within my practice, when I'm working with my clients, it's first of all, it's educating them on it, because a lot of people just don't understand, what the nervous system is and what the vagus nerve is. And then from there, it's a lot of like vagus nerve work. It's things to help stimulate the vagus nerve. So things like, and for those listening, if you don't know what that is, things, basically anything that's going to stimulate your vocal cords is going to stimulate the vagus nerve. So it's things like gargling, humming, oming. If you've ever been to yoga class and you've done the om, that's the whole thing. It stimulates the parasympathetic nervous system and it gets everything calm. Things like that. And other things to help with the nervous system. Like I always encourage them, not everybody takes me up on it, but I always encourage them to do like cold therapy, whether it's a cold shower or a cold plunge, cryotherapy, if you have access to that. But things that can help really stimulate the nervous system and build that resiliency in the body. And that's really, it really is a huge piece of the healing, because, you know, when we're running around in that fight or flight state all the time, every part of your body is in the fight or flight state all the time. So of course, you know, you're not digesting and your hormones are going crazy and your skin's looking crazy and you can't sleep and you know, everything is going crazy. So being able to educate them on nervous system work, on the vagus nerve, and the understanding how to, you know, and then practices for nervous system regulation, like mindfulness practices, like meditation and EFT tapping, and you just like a simple walk outside. Like I encourage them, just like get outside and take a 10-minute walk, go to a park down the road and get out with nature and connect with something else besides your head, you know, get out of your body and out of your mind and, you know, kind of get out. So things like that, to then bring in that mindfulness piece really does help bring some attention to the nervous system and kind of helps regulate.
I think it's huge. I just got into tapping, you know, the EFT recently, and folks, for you guys who are like, what's EFT? Emotional freedom technique. It is a tapping sequence. I like it because it goes on the acupuncture meridians, and so I got into it, and I kind of play with it a little bit. Instead of the traditional techniques, I'll sometimes throw in a couple of points just for fun, because I know that the body could use those stimulation techniques. Yes. Now, are you guys doing this? Like, are you doing videos of yourself for your clients doing this? Are you doing any group sessions? How do you guys do your tapping?
Yeah, so I don't have group sessions going on, but I have just a friend of mine who I kind of bring as like a guest expert, and she is trained in EFT tapping and NLP and all these other cool things. And so I have some videos for them to kind of follow along with her and learn like from her expertise and kind of be able to integrate that way.
Nice. I like the guest folks. I need to get more of that into my program. So tell us a little bit about human design related to wellness, because I hear about it a lot, and I think I haven't talked about it much on the podcast. And I think that this would be something interesting to integrate into our podcast today, because we're talking about all these different aspects and options that are available to women. Of course, that's my mission with the podcast. But with human design, I think a lot of people think about it, but and have heard of it, but they don't necessarily know how it integrates into wellness. So give us the scoop on that.
Yeah, for sure. So I fell into human design a few years ago, and this actually the friend of mine who does the EFT and NLP, I did some coaching with her, and she has like a spiritual business coaching program, a few programs, but I learned she just had a little piece of it in there about human design, and I was just so fascinated with it. I just dove in. So for those of you who don't know what human design is, first of all, you can go online and get your chart for free. So you can go get your chart and kind of, as I talk about, you can kind of see what I'm talking about within your chart, but it's basically your energetic blueprint. So it's a combination of ancient techniques like astrology and the chakra system and some other ancient techniques, also combined with like some neuroscience and some quantum physics. And it's this chart that you can, again, get free online, that basically tells you your energetic blueprint, like who you were designed to be, how you interact with the world around you, how and why you make decisions the way you do. And it really is just this way to understand why you work the way you do, how you work the way you do. So for me, first learning about it was just like this eye-opening experience. Like I feel like I was just meeting myself for the first time. And it's like this validation piece, like, oh, that's why I do this. Like, oh, that's why I think that, you know, it's such an interesting experience to learn yourself from this perspective. And so it really has transformed how I see myself, how I make decisions, because it one of the great things about it is I feel like it gives you permission, like it gives you permission to be you, because you see how you were designed, and you don't have to live by these like shoulds, right? And that's kind of how I see it when you're looking at wellness through the lens of human design. we spend a lot of time and a lot of energy being something that we are not. We live by the shoulds is usually what I say, right? We live by the shoulds, doing things. I should do things this way. I should do things that way. And when we're doing things by the shoulds rather than how we were designed to be, we spend an excessive amount of energy. And this is when we meet resistance. When we meet resistance is when we end up finding burnout and exhaustion and issues with our immune system and dis-ease in the body, right? Because we are doing things that we were not designed to do. We're meeting that resistance. And so when we're able to understand our bodies from an energetic perspective, we know now how to make decisions and how to do things for our body where we have more like alignment and flow, where we're not meeting that resistance. We're not spending excess energy doing things that we're not designed to do and being things that something that we're not designed to be. So that's how I kind of bring it in with wellness. And so with my clients, and now if, for those of you listening, if you know anything about human design, you can go down the rabbit hole so deep here. Like you can go really deep into human design. Like it is like this endless like time warp where you can go super deep. With my clients, I kind of keep it like, I don't want to say surface level, but I kind of just keep it pretty general, because really truly when you're talking about wellness, you don't really have to go all that deep to understand like your best wellness practices for your human design. So, looking at like your energy type, your human design type, and your centers, like open centers and defined centers, that kind of thing. That's really the basics of what you need to know to understand how you best work. So knowing your type is going to let you know, best sleep practices and best movement practices and best choices for like when and how to eat and your caloric needs, that kind of thing.
I find it fascinating. When I first looked at it, I was like, oh, wow, I am so not this person, and I found over time that many people, especially those who are more burnt out, more overwhelmed, more stressed out, talk about the sympathetic nervous system fighting back against all this. I find that, wow, okay, there's definitely something to this. At first, my Midwest thought process was like, okay, it's weird. But the more I dove into it, I'm like, wow, okay, I am one, not living, my design, but also just completely off base here. And then you mentioned like connected to wellness, obviously at the core of, I think most disease is us not being ourselves, which is causing most of the stress, because I'll have a lot of people come into my office and be like, I'm fine, everything's fine. I don't have stress. I have the best life ever. So why are you so sick?
Exactly.
What's going on here? Something's off. And so, I think unfortunately or fortunately with awareness, we are the ones that create a lot of our own disease, but we can also undo it too.
Yeah, for sure. Absolutely.
That is the cool part. And you are doing quite a bit to help ladies out there. Now you also have a podcast, and it's Hopeful and Wholesome podcast, correct?
That's right. Yes.
Tell us a little bit about your podcast, what folks can find on the podcast, things of that nature.
Yeah. So the premise there is really just health, wellness, and inspiration. And so I do some solo episodes that mostly have guests talk about all things health, wellness, things to inspire, things to educate.
Nice. I will also be showing up on Hope's podcast soon too, folks. So definitely check out hers and like this one, share it with other folks as well, because really the biggest concept here is really helping women to understand that, our best years are yet to come. And that if we are aware of what's going on, we can dial in a little bit, to ourselves and spend a little time with ourselves, we have the ability to get rid of a lot of the things that are nagging us. You've seen it in your practice.
Yeah, for sure. 100%.
Over and over again. Do you have any, I'd love to tell stories on the podcast. Do you have any and I didn't prep her for this one. So, this is going to be off the cuff, but do you have any stories or even things that you could come up with for the podcast listeners today about what might be the most effective way to start paying attention to yourself? Whether it's a patient story or a client story, or whether it's your own story, what can folks do right now, having listened to this? Where would they start to start working on their own intuition?
I think that's such a good question. I think getting started, kind of what we were saying before, I think it's just making the space. And I
Mm-hmm.
think especially for women, that's the hardest part because we're too busy taking care of everybody else and our kids and our partner, family, whatever. And we don't make the time for ourselves, right? Bottom line.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's something that I've really been honing in on the past, especially the past couple of years. I have two little ones, and I find that, and you probably know this too, that I am a much better just human in general when I'm able to make time for myself, and it doesn't have to be like long drawn out things, but just making time where I can be by myself with myself. And I think that we either A, don't make the time, make the space, or B, I do think that there is some apprehension with people who they're afraid to be by themselves with themselves. They don't know what's going to come up. And
Right.
so I think that that's the most important piece, is whether it's, 10 minutes in the morning when you first wake up before everybody else wakes up or whatever, but just making the space. I think once you're able to make the space, you are able to find that piece of yourself that you've been missing. And for me, like I like crave it now. Like I have to have it. Like it's whether it's that meditation time for myself or just like there's a trailhead up from my house, like getting to the trailhead and just taking a walk super early in the morning before everybody wakes up in my house. Like finding that time where I can quiet everything else and I can go inward and I, do a walking meditation or, listen to a book or whatever. But it's just that time, like you start to crave that time with yourself, for yourself. And it's when you're able to make that space that you can start building that awareness, because you are spending time with yourself, which it could sound silly, like you're spending time with yourself, but that's really where you start to build that sense of awareness. We can start listening to yourself and your intuition will start talking to you when you're able to spend time with yourself and really just be with you.
I love that. I love that. I mean, it's a practice, right? It's like,
Yeah.
and this is the thing that I have to reiterate to my folks as well too, is that, first time around, it's going to, like you said, it's going to be weird. Maybe
Mm-hmm.
the 10th time it's going to be,
Yep.
awkward, but spending that time with yourself, and taking a little like review through the day, through the week, whatever it may be, and seeing kind of where things went off the rails, where things could be improved. I think it's huge.
Yeah.
And there is a lot to folks who are resistant to doing that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, and I think too that we overcomplicate it, and and then you think it should look a certain way, and it doesn't have to look a certain way. Like if meditation's not your thing, it doesn't have to be your thing. You don't have to force yourself to meditate if you don't want to meditate. Make it something else. Maybe you like to journal and write. Maybe you like to paint. Maybe that's where you get into them. You can get into the meditative state doing anything, gardening, painting, cooking. Like it can be multiple things. It could be you take a 10-minute walk by yourself or you go ride your bike. Like it could be different things. It doesn't have to look a certain way, but it's really all about getting out of your head, getting out of your body, and just going to be with yourself, by yourself. That's the important piece.
Gotcha.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, it's incredible once you get to it, as you can
Yeah.
attest to as well. And
Mm-hmm.
it does help to really slow the monkey like brain down, but
Yes.
also like we mentioned before, the intuition.
Mm-hmm.
And ladies, this is something that I can't help stress enough, how important intuition is, because we have it for our kids, we have it for everybody else. We need to use our
Exactly.
superpowers for ourselves.
Exactly. Yep.
It's huge. It's huge. So Hope, tell us where folks can find out about you beyond the Inbalance Studios. Where can they find out about your coaching programs and the podcast and all of that stuff? Give us the whole scoop.
Yes. So my podcast is all on all of the main podcasts, wherever you stream your podcast. You can find it pretty much anywhere. You can find me on Instagram at the Hope Pedraza. And then I have a free Facebook group. It's Live Wholesome and Healthy. And it's just all things holistic living, holistic nutrition, and a little bit of human design sprinkled in.
Nice. Well, thanks for coming on and sharing your story and giving us some good insights on intuition and some creative ways to work out. I hope you guys do check out our imbalancestudios.com website, because I do think that there's some really creative stuff there that you might not have seen anywhere else. So check it out. Thanks again, Hope, for coming on. I appreciate it. And I will look forward to coming on your podcast. And so folks, you gotta stay tuned for that. We'll keep that in the podcast notes at drjkrausnd.com.
Perfect. Thanks so much for having me.
My pleasure. Talk soon.
Sounds good.
Hey, Health Junkies, if you liked this podcast and want to know more about human design that Hope and I have been talking all about, you want to listen to the next podcast, because I decided to make this the 2-part series. So Stay tuned for next week when you can listen to part 2 of my interview with Hope, talking all about human design. All right, we'll see you next time. Hey, fellow health junkie, thanks for listening to the Health Fix podcast. If you enjoyed tuning in, please help support me to get the word out about the podcast. Subscribe, rate, and review, and just get that word out. Thanks again for listening.